Our state has some incredible problems. My name is Lynn Hinderaker. I'm here to talk about that with you and talk about the trends that have shaped this state and dragged us in one direction or another. We're not really we're not realizing the dream we had way back in the early 2000s or even around 2008 or 9 or 10. My name is Lynn Hinderaker. Welcome to WowBiz Nebraska. We're going to get it on right now. Business is a matrix. Things are coming at us from every direction, and this particular version of WowBiz Nebraska is going to be exactly the same way. I'm Lynn Hinderaker. I'm married here with my friend Bruce Arant. Bruce, great to see you.
Good to be here.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about here on WowBiz Nebraska, and I know that our viewers are waiting with bated breath to hear where we're going to go. They never know where we're going to go, and what I love about you is your ability to connect the dots, or at least right along as I connect the dots.
I have you fooled,
yes.
Obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you know, before we jump into there's a strategic discussion here. We're going to talk about South Sioux City and the trauma that they've undergone. The Tyson executive team that lives in the Dakota Dunes and has worked in that South Dakota Sioux City area for some time.
Right.
They've all been asked to relocate, move down to the corporate headquarters of Tyson. And by the way, Tyson, along with BPI, is the largest meat processing company in the United States of America, maybe in the world.
Wow.
It's a big deal. And
how many people is this going to impact?
Well, 500 executives were essentially let go. They said either move with us to Arkansas or you're on your own.
Wow.
See, that's a lot of people.
That's brutal. Yeah.
And South Sioux City has 13,000 people. So
yeah. What time frame though?
Well, I'm not sure exactly, but I mean, it's
happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now the plant still continues. 4,500 people are there, laborers,
and that's staying.
And that's staying.
Okay.
So that's a very important consideration. But a lot of these executives that are perhaps no longer working, depending on if they want to move or not.
Right.
You know, these are six-figure executives in most cases. And so to have them just kind of saying, and by the way, they're living in homes, $400, $500 million homes.
Yeah. Dakota Dunes is a gorgeous area.
Yeah, how do you find somebody to move into and be able to finance these wonderful homes if there aren't companies in South Sioux City? And that's going to be the direction of our dialogue in a minute. What are the civic leaders of this community supposed to be doing?
Yeah, that's a conundrum, to say the least.
That is a conundrum. We'll get to that in just a second.
Okay.
You know, we've talked with our viewers, Bruce, about urban natural people, urban natural architecture, and we've even talked about urban natural interior design.
Right.
And folks, if you're not aware of it, urban naturalism is when we bring opposite materials together. So typically it would be some type of industrial metal, steel or something like that, with wood. And we've learned over the years that actually human beings love and are actually stimulated in a positive and emotional way when opposites come together, like metal and wood, black and white, whatever opposites are. All right, so
it's where you see the convergence of the two.
The convergence of the two stimulates the release of some dopamine in the human brain and kind of puts you in a good mood, basically. So anyway, that's a cool insight, and it can be applied in interior design. Right. And you know, I'm sure we've all heard of, there's Hardy coffee, and so this lady right here and her husband have done a great job setting up 2 or 3 or 4 beautiful coffee shops around the area. I'm going to hold up the cover of this wonderful new magazine called Milford, and there she is, right, sitting at her coffee shop.
Wow. The
way she's designed it, but it's just a wonderful example of interior, urban, natural interior design.
We'll have to go get a cup of coffee there.
Well, we'll have to go and look around because there's a tremendous, I mean, it's a beautiful environment. And everybody will go, oh yeah, sure, I know about that, but they don't really realize that she is a trendsetter and that urban natural design and interiors is a huge thing. And of course, we think people should be using the word urban natural when they talk about it. That makes it even more attractive from a marketing point of view. Anyway, I'm not going to overdo this, but I just want you to know, people say, well, are they really doing that? Are they using that? Absolutely. By the way, Nebraska Furniture Mart has a number of studio areas set up focusing on urban natural materials, interior design. All right. Well, let's swing back to South Sioux City, and we'll let our viewers know kind of what's going on there.
Okay.
And all we're going to have here is a strategic what-if conversation.
We're not going to solve any problems.
No, well, I don't think so yet. But there are certainly things that could be done.
Yeah.
And by the way, I mean, if you're in a community that's been pretty stable, it does what it does, and they do it pretty well. This comes at quite a shock.
Oh, that's devastating. That many jobs out of a community that size.
What would it do to GDP and taxes and all that kind of stuff, and what are the implications, and what is the right thing to do, see? So I've spent a little bit of time up there lately, and kind of stuck my nose around, chatted with some people about the community and so on. And of course, the first thing is what we're all looking for is we should have some employers there that could hire these people.
Right, right.
Because the existing employers, as a general rule, they can't pay salaries like that to these people, see? That's
top shelf.
That's right.
Yeah.
Top shelf salaries. So those people are thinking about, well, you know, start sending my resume to Des Moines or Colorado or Omaha. I mean, where do we go, you know?
Right.
So they're in that kind of a dilemma. But I see it potentially as it's a wonderful shock, should we say. It became clear, obviously, that they weren't ready. They aren't really thinking much about, up to this point, attracting, we'll call them knowledge workers, software developers, you know, what I would call urban natural people. And so this kind of forces them to deal with that. What kind of environment do we need to have to keep these people here? And if they leave, can we ever replace them? You know, South Sioux City is 50% Latino, right? So that's a pretty strong, you know, influence. But you know, here in America and in Nebraska to some degree, diversity is a big hot topic.
Sure.
Right. So they're sitting there in this situation where they could claim to be one of the more diverse communities in the state.
Right.
Right. But they got to figure out how to turn South Sioux City into a haven, shall we say, or a place where people in the know. I'm going to pretend I'm 25. I had a good experience at UNL or Creighton or whatever. You know, I'm a well-paid young knowledge worker. I'm kind of wondering about my career, you know. I'm going to tell you, the very first place I would think about going is South Sioux City.
Really? Just because it's a wide open
field.
Open.
Well, first of all, if you take a look at the map and just kind of watch the plots and the individual areas, right? There is a ton, and as you get down towards the river, and of course the river is always the first place you want to think about creating density.
Right.
You want some action down by the river, you know? But they haven't done that, see? They've ignored that, kind of overlooked that. And it's got a sandbar there, so you could really build out into the water, you know, and create kind of an exciting environment. Yeah.
What is it now? Just industrial?
Yeah, well, or nothing.
Or nothing?
Yeah. Now, Ho Chunk is building a new casino.
Okay.
So the Ho Chunk Casino, and it's going to be a big deal.
Is it down by the water?
No, it's not.
Okay.
But nevertheless, you could, flipping the script here slightly, you could build a neighborhood that's even walkable around this Ho Chunk thing. And of course, in South Sioux City, affordable housing is a huge issue, as it is across the entire state. So there's certain things that if you get the community leaders, you get business people, you get them sitting around, form a community, and say, let's not talk about the terrible thing that just happened, because we're not going to go backwards.
Right.
We're not going to replace that ever.
You need to attract some anchors,
right?
Like the Ho Chunk thing, and then a few of them.
Yeah. And you need to get on with things and move to the river and start grabbing up these plots of land that are all around the area, by the river, over here, over there, and get real estate developers. Now, they have a few in the area, but they need to get more real estate developers looking at this stuff, going, what can we do here?
The potential.
The potential is massive, you know, especially for these mid-level workers. You know, they're making 50, maybe 60, something like that. They could live in some hip urban natural designs. Maybe, I wouldn't want to call them duplexes exactly, but they are kind of coming together, and so you can cut costs to some degree in that way. Yeah. So there is tremendous potential. You know, back in the old days, large corporations would actually buy the land, right? And so that would be taken care of, and then they'd set up an area there, and the construction people would come in, and they'd keep the overall cost down, so their workers had a place to live, you know, and they could work nearby the plant or the office or whatever.
Which was a great model at that time. I wonder if there's any potential for doing that.
I mean, what if you go downtown, or if you just create a downtown?
Yeah.
And then you have employers that you get up, and you can walk down the street to the employment.
Right.
That's what I'm getting at. You don't necessarily always have to have an industrial plant, although there's nothing wrong with that either. But this could also just kind of nudge them forward into the digital area.
But I like the idea of a walkable community.
A walkable pedestrian community, very hip. Keep it non-pollution and so on. So anyway, it's a key moment for South Sioux City, and the leaders have to look around and say, now, who's got the time to really attend these meetings, put some money and time into this, maybe go to the state or the federal level and ask for grants.
Oh, there's got to be money for that, I would think.
Absolutely. TIF, and actually begin to portray a vision.
Yeah. Do you know if anything's on the drawing board yet?
No, I know that it's not.
Oh.
And but there are people that see potential.
Right.
But nobody seems to have the time, and nobody has said, we need to pull ourselves together here and come up with a vision. So they're right at that moment now.
Yeah, this is critical.
Oh, this is absolutely critical. And if you've never been through this phase in your career, no matter how old you are, municipal planning and whatever it is, you may not have experienced this moment. Yeah. It's so easy to just react to whatever comes at you. You know what I'm saying? Instead of saying being proactive and say, wait a minute, we're going to put this short-term stuff aside, and we're going to think ahead 10 to 20 years now. We owe that to our grandchildren.
But like you say, they've been shocked, or this is kind of a jarring scenario right now that they have to.
And it could work against them. You could have a lot of, controversy and disagreements, and how did you let this happen? I mean, it could go that way. Or you can move into the future and say, okay, we're going to hold on to the assets we have, and we're going to pursue a new vision.
Make lemonade out of the lemons.
That's right. Yeah. Let's have an illustrations, let's have images, and let's know who's really serious about stepping up. So we're going to think a lot about South Sioux City. We wish them our very, very best, and that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it really is.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, real quick here, leadership is coming up, at this kind of a thing. What kind of leaders do we need today? Right. Given the recessionary talk, and the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce came out with a report said Nebraskans are extremely, especially rural Nebraskans, extremely pessimistic about the future. So you'd like to think about how do we help them? Yeah. What's the right mindset at this time? And I've got 4 ideas. We might come back to them right after the break. The first one is dealing with fear and the past, kind of like South Sioux City we just talked about. That's a key idea. Another idea is we're always looking inside how we feel and how I wish everything was for me, instead of looking outside and wondering, how could I help those people? How could I be of value to those people? And not focusing on your internal consideration.
Get some synergy going.
Yeah. And then the final thing is, one thing could be many. You can take a company, they're saying, how do we make more money with our company? The consumer spending could be down. The idea is to spin off, take your company and come up with more services, more things you can do that you can sell that relate back to your core business.
All of this kind of leads to vision.
Vision.
I mean, that's what I would say.
And expansion, despite the fact that everybody's going, oh, it's going to be bad, things are terrible, and so on and so on. I don't buy that. And I don't think the viewers of WowBiz Nebraska buy that either. Mr. Bruce Arant, thank you so much. That was a smooth segue, wasn't it? That was pretty good.
It really was.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk a little bit right now. This entire show is being brought to you by Modus downtown Omaha, Nebraska. I got to tell you, this is a fascinating place, and you're going to learn right now about a value. I was around 30 years ago and led what some people later refer to as the value revolution. Right. But we're going to see a value revolution right now, and it's taking place right downtown at a place called Modus. That would be at 19th and Howard, 1901 Howard. That's where the old Form, Redfield, I think it was, Form Printing Company was for many, many years. Okay. Only a couple blocks away from the courthouse downtown Omaha. Right. But here's what they've got going down there. First of all, just think for a moment. Contemporary, open offices everywhere, conference rooms. Things are movable, built-in podcasting rooms, booths, very beautifully insulated and so on. Yep. And not only that, as you have that, and like I said before, some beautiful conference rooms, and the furnishings are just top notch. I just want to emphasize that to you. But then towards the back of the area, and it takes up a complete floor of this massive building, but back towards the floor where all of this exists is a kitchen, kind of a living room, kitchenette, informal conference. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A place where you can kind of float around. The tables here are a little higher, a little lower over here. A real easy place to hang out if you get tired of sitting in your cubicle or wherever you're at.
Right.
Right. Now here's the thing. The people who own this operation, and they're very foresighted people and so on, they've noticed that a lot of the people in the offices that are renting, and some of these rents go from $500, $750, $850, kind of in that range.
Right.
You know. And but a lot of them will float during the day, will float back to this area and set up their because they just take the laptop, you know, or go have a little chat with somebody and so on. And they'll visit informally, free coffee, free beer, free snacks, all of it, right? Microwaves, ovens, everything. It's just a fully functional, cool place, and art everywhere, my friend.
Wow.
Everywhere. So people will, they notice, they said, you know, people kind of are drifting back there.
Yeah.
Why don't we develop a new service package for the office, you know, for a person, by the way, you don't want to bring a bunch of junk back there, but if you're a laptop kind of person,
right,
you know, and all you need is a phone and a laptop and you can work anywhere, this is a place you can rent the ability to walk through this beautiful building, meet people, by the way, in the halls that are worth meeting.
Yeah.
And then go back there and set up in a sofa and a chair, up at a table, whatever you want, go have free coffee.
Rather than a traditional office.
Rather than a traditional office, it'd be like sitting down in the coolest living room and kitchen you ever saw.
Yeah, it reminds me of a kitchen or living room
Yeah,
setting.
open air. And yeah, that's what it's like. What do you think they charge to be able to do that?
I wouldn't have a clue.
$150.
What?
$150 a month. That's nothing.
Yeah.
This is what I say, all the lux without the bucks. Okay, I don't mean to be corny or anything, but that's really what they're delivering. This is a tremendous value, and I sure hope that the right folks in the Omaha area know about this, the availability of this service.
And there's some, and my studio's downtown, not too terribly far
I
from
know,
there,
you know about that.
And I like the energy of downtown. I've always liked it.
Absolutely.
And I would think I would encourage people, I guess, to check out, if you're used to just working out west or wherever, there is a vibe downtown that's really kind of energizing.
It really is, some different interesting options and so on.
Yeah.
And so it's really a cool thing, and I would just encourage our viewers to hang out or figure out or go on down to Modus. They have 2 or 3 people that kind of take care of things and supervise and so on. And printing, you can get your stuff printed there as well. Wonderful Wi-Fi.
That price is crazy good.
$150 a month to be in this environment. Just sit back there, do your stuff, hang out, do whatever you want to go. $150 a month. It's the value of the decade, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Right there, Modus, 1901, Howard, downtown Omaha. All right, we are back. People back there, do you know what they're doing out there? They're saying, I want that Bruce Arant guy to be back on. We're going to talk with him. I like that guy.
I know you get lots of mail about that.
Oh, constantly, all the time. They're just bugging me all the time. So we're going to talk a little bit about something we just kind of talked about last time. And that is what's going on with people, remote workers, that are under pressure to come back to the office.
Yeah.
That means who's going to feed the dog?
Right. Who's going to watch the kids?
Who's going to watch the kids? Who's going to pick them up at 4:30 over at the area? Who's going to get the gas in the car? Et cetera, et cetera. And plus, a lot of them say, hey, we're 9% more productive at home anyway. Now, I want you to pretend you're the boss. Right? You're the boss. You're downtown. You got a beautiful office.
Yeah.
It's only 1/3 full. You know, there's hardly anybody in there.
I'm at Modus, right?
Well, you're somewhere. You're probably not at Modus. And so you're talking to me, and I'm like your number 2 guy in that office or whatever. And you believe we need to get everybody in here as much as possible. So what are we going to do, boss?
You know what I would, and this is just coming to my head as we're talking.
Yeah.
I would almost try to follow that model that you just described at Modus. Not that you could have the same environment, but try to make it inviting, try to make it a place where people want to be.
So
Maybe
change the physical environment.
change the physical environment.
Okay, that's very interesting. And by the way, if I'm an office furnishings dealer, I'm listening carefully.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, you might have to take out 1 or 2 office areas to make an open area like that.
Yeah, it could be.
Or whatever you have to do.
Yeah.
But even if you can't do that, somehow try to reconfigure enough that it makes people, and not just your physical surroundings, but your culture. You've got to make it so that people feel like it's a place they would want to hang out.
Yeah.
As much as they want to be home to watch soap operas in the afternoon.
Well, I mean, if they're listening right now, they're saying, but there's that jerk that's only going to be 6 feet away from me, and I hate that guy, and he says, and he stinks, and I don't want to be there. I mean, there are these kinds of things that come up.
And those are real, because there's always the stinky jerk out there.
Yeah.
I mean, there is, but
It's next week's sponsor, the Stinky Jerk.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. And
I have to put up with it every time I sit here. no, but it's
good one.
Yeah, but if you can make it somehow, and you're not going to please everybody.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
But do what you can.
But now I'm number 2 guy. I'm going to say, boss, why do you feel so strongly that people do have to come back here? I mean, what's a rationale for that? I get the fact that a new environment would be kind of cool, but because that's a lot of money, and is there any ROI on it?
Because from my experience, face-to-face, it's exponentially more effective in terms of communicating and just thinking and getting things done, as opposed to a phone call or a Zoom call. I don't think you can really compare them.
Yeah. Body language is difficult to get any kind of body language.
Right.
You can really misunderstand how people are taking the information. The other piece that I think somehow should play a role is innovation. Yeah. It's really tough to innovate when people are at arm's length and they're not around.
They're creating in a vacuum because they're really by themselves.
Yes.
And even though they're linked up on a conference call or something on Zoom, it's not the same.
It's hard. It's not the same. So I think we're arriving at the conclusion that you can move your company forward and just stay in the same groove, kind of keep operating, follow the system. You can do that with remote workers, but I don't think you can leap ahead with new incremental or exponential new products.
Depending on the type of business you're in, but I think that's very true for certain companies.
Now here's a cool article that is so interesting. It says workers who never left the office, feel stung as returnees are feted. In other words, there's a real tendency, now please come on back, we'd love to have you here. I got a trophy, we're going to have a little party when Joe comes back, it'll be great. And the people that always had stuck with you, were always there in the office, they're not getting any of these rewards.
It's the story of the prodigal son.
Yeah,
right. I mean, it really is, because people are saying, hey, I've been loyal, I've been sticking here, and then you're favoring this guy? Why? And I can see that being a problem.
Here's a quote. It says one thing we talk about is, what are you doing to get your employees to stay engaged, to stay working, and stay working at the office? It's really a challenge, right? Now this is the big deal. 12, 15 years ago, Gallup talked about this, and they called it presenteeism. Where they're present, but really no more than just, now it's called quiet quitting.
Oh.
Same idea though.
Yeah,
I'm here, I left my wife and my dog at home, so I'm here.
But you're taking up space, and that's about
all. You're
all.
taking up space, you're not really doing much for the boss that insisted that you come. Now this is heavy stuff.
That's an AR or HR issue, I think, isn't it? I mean, if they have to, I sound like I'm a real,
Let's talk about HR for 30 seconds.
Okay.
I had the opportunity to speak to a group of HR people a while back, and I came to them with a 6-point system to revitalize the HR function so that they'd be more respected and more strategic in their thinking.
Right.
But they didn't get it at all. They're like, well, how do I push the paper and do what you say? They've been taught by some boss, just get the insurance forms done, da-da-da-da-da. Your job is to push the paper. And I blame the bosses. They never explain, we see your insight into human beings as critical to the future of the company.
Yeah.
And that really is what it should be.
That's what it should be, sure.
Man.
Well,
I thought that was really something. I was really disappointed they were so flat in their response to my message. And I know that I was ahead of the curve for them, but and then I asked, why aren't you, a little bit more into the general theme of this thing? And they're like, well, it seems like a good idea, but then how would I take care of all my paperwork?
It's like everything else that's new. It's like we've never done it that way before.
Well,
but you probably are a little bit ahead of the curve,
right.
And eventually it'll catch up with you.
Speaking now about the people that are at home, and they're still at home. Yeah. I personally know a person he's there 5 days a week and has no intention of ever changing anything.
Wow.
And he does well. He's got a team of people. They check in every morning, da-da-da-da-da. So, but this guy right here is my person that I'm talking about. And he says, quote, "My life has changed. I have changed." By being home and having all these responsibilities and disciplining myself in a certain way.
That takes a certain person, though. Not everybody can be that disciplined.
You're so right. I think to some extent it's introvert versus extrovert.
Yeah.
I hate to oversimplify, but I think the extroverts just love to get out there and talk and what you guys doing, hang out, let's go have a beer.
And that could be why I am more fond of a person-to-person kind of environment and office environment.
Yeah.
I mean, I work alone a lot anyhow, but I still interact with people.
Yeah.
I would go crazy if I couldn't.
It's a missing piece.
Be around people, though.
It's a missing piese. Next time, Bruce, Arant, you and I are going to talk about leadership and the new era leadership and what leadership really means this day and age, and how employees are a little disappointed in the current generation of leaders, mostly boomers and Gen X. They're not what we thought they should be. At school, they didn't tell us that bosses act like you. Then the boss takes me out in the front yard and says, "These kids are lazy and a little bit rebellious, a little snotty, and they don't get their work done on time and act like they're doing me a big favor. Lynn, what can we do?" I said, "Pay me, I'll let you know."
Yeah, I'll let you know.
All right. Well, I'm Lynn Hinderaker right here with Bruce Arant, and we have a good time every time we get together, and we're hopefully sharing thoughtful nuggets of insight that are applicable and actionable,
Yeah,
don't you
something
think?
that'll spark something somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I meet people out there on the streets, they speak out. It's interesting content. We don't ever hear this kind of thing anywhere else. So that sounds like a good thing to me.
I think so.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time on WowBiz Nebraska. Don't forget, we'll see you next time. Thanks very much.